Good morning, all. Thank you for joining the webinar for our compliance tracking module, Approve. It looks like we have a couple of attendees in here. Deborah and Emily, can you hear me all right? Let's see if I can. I might have to unmute. Let's try
Um,
this. There we
uh,
go.
yeah, hi Jake, we can hear you. I
Okay.
just unmuted myself for that though.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's okay. Deborah and Emily, good morning, good afternoon. How are you? Can you hear me all right?
Can't talk. Emily just said good morning via chat. I'm assuming because they're all muted.
Oh, perfect. Okay. We had quite a few more attendees signed up for this webinar, so I want to give them just a minute to join. We'll see if anybody else joins, and then we'll go ahead and get this started. So thank you for your patience while we get this going. Now, Emily and Deborah, maybe you can let me know which programs are you with, or which universities, while we wait. Let's see, I should have unmuted, so you should be able to speak now. I see Deborah's microphone lighting up, but it's not. I'm not hearing anything. Okay, well, we're 4 after, almost 5. We'll give it to 10:05, and then if anybody else jumps in, they'll catch the start of it. All right, I think we're just going to go ahead and get started. Deborah, Emily, any questions before jumping into the details? If not, I will go ahead and just proceed with the presentation. Okay, sounds good. Let's go ahead. Now, specifically, we're talking about the approved service today under the compliance tracking portion of Exact Prism. Now, the approved service is a separate fee. I'll go over pricing at the end, but this is the only additional cost to Exact Prism. Now, you can use it independently of Prism as well. You can also manage this internally within your own program without using our service and without having to pay the additional fee if you are using Exact Prism. Compliance tracking is a feature that is included within Prism, and if you have faculty or in-house faculty or staff that are responsible for managing compliance within your program, they can manage it through Exact Prism. The approved service is just our team of medical professionals that will review and approve or deny documentation on your behalf. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on that later. But just to give you some context and some background on Approve, we started in 2017, so it's been running for about 6 years now. We currently work with over 450 programs plus. This is really just to let you know that we're very, very comfortable when it comes to reviewing student documentation and even sharing best practices from some of the things that we've seen work with other programs in your same discipline. And excuse me for any excessive coughing or sniffling. I'm feeling a bit under the weather today, so I apologize in advance. Now, if we break down Approve, it can be broken down into 3 different buckets, and I'll go into each of these individually and touch on a little bit more detail. But the 3 buckets are the required document review portion, which entails the setup within the compliance section of Exact, providing guidelines for us to go about how to go about reviewing, student upload, and the review. We also have background checks and drug screenings available for the students to request directly within Exact. This is done through an integration with a partner company called Universal. Makes it very easy for the students to request the checks and screenings, and once completed, results are directly uploaded back in. And then finally, the document management and reporting side. Now, this bucket applies more specifically to administration and being able to notify the students, keep them on top of everything, and run reports to make sure that your students are in compliance prior and during onboarding for their clinical or field rotations. Now, these documents that most often you're tracking, they're meeting admission or clinical field site requirements. Some examples of these are immunizations, any certifications, school forms, cards and licensure, essentially anything that you can give us guidelines on how to go about reviewing this particular document, we can review that on your behalf. Now, this is what the setup screen looks like. Now, we'll walk you through this during onboarding. For each item, we'll set up different categories and identify which documents should fall where under which category. And then line by line, we'll determine with you, is this document required? Is it optional? Would you like to provide any templates or samples to this for the students to be able to refer to when uploading this documentation? And then is this document to be shared with the clinical or the field site at the time of onboarding? So to expand on the workflow a little bit, we'll work with you to gather those requirements. Typically, we ask you to put those in an Excel spreadsheet, and then we'll go through the onboarding process with you and set those up within the system, sharing best practices, as I mentioned, from other programs along the way. Now, to expand on that a little bit further, once those documents are configured and the guidelines have been provided, students would, of course, begin to upload that documentation. And now our team will review those student uploads within 24 hours as needed. I know there are certain documents that have short turnaround windows and need to be reviewed immediately. As if documents need to be reviewed within a 24-hour window, we'll review those within 24 hours. And then throughout the year, we'll convene as needed. And what I mean by this is we're never going to leave any room for misinterpretation or gray area. If we're unsure or unclear about how to go about reviewing a specific piece of documentation, we don't want to assume on your behalf. Although the idea is to really limit your participation in this process as much as possible so you can focus on some of the larger activities of clinical education, we do want to always reach out and get that clarity and use that as a best practice moving forward. So we'll reach out once for that clarification, and then if that issue comes up and again in the future, we'll use the same reference point from last time. And then at the beginning of a new year, we'll meet again and say, okay, what are some of the things that we thought went well? Is there anything you think we can improve upon? Or maybe everything was great, and let's just do it again. Now, this is what the student will see from their end. You can also view this as an administrator, and this is where the majority of the interaction takes place for the student side of the profile. If they were to click on the compliance tab here, it would take them to this page where they can see the overall status of all the documents that they've uploaded and the progress in terms of reviewal. So they can get a quick idea of how many documents have been approved versus pending review versus disapproved. Now, if our team is reviewing and we disapprove a document for any reason, as you can see with the Hep B here that the student has uploaded, if we disapprove that, we'll always write a little note as to why the document was disapproved or maybe next steps that the student needs to take in order to get it approved. We'll also send them automatic notifications of any disapprovals or expirations, anything of that nature, to keep them updated on all the documentation. Now, I want to go back for a second here as well. You, as the administrator, you still have full authority and control over the entire review process. So let's say you don't have time to wait for one of our reviewers to go through and approve documentation. You can still go in as the administrator and approve or disapprove at whim. So if you need to make an immediate adjustment or approval, you can do that. We just ask that you let our team know so that we're in the loop on what happened there. Now, if I were to click on any individual line item, it's going to take me to a page that looks like this. You can provide guidelines for the students, so it's very, very clear for them in terms of what they need to do or what they're expected to upload, and then any relevant information according to the documentation. Now, I mentioned earlier, we'll review a document within 24 hours as needed for each document. However, what we prefer to do is create a deadline for the students to upload all of a particular document type by, and then a deadline for our team to review all the students' particular document at one time. And what this does for us is it allows us to notice trends and address everything all at once. So rather than having to place multiple calls every time something comes up or there's an issue or an error with the student, creating a deadline and waiting until all the students have uploaded it allows us to address things as a whole rather than individually. We've found that it really increases efficiency and it limits the number of calls that we have to place to you. So hopefully this makes sense, but let me know if there's any questions there. Now, I want to talk about Universal for just a second. Universal has been around for a very long time. I know that their pricing is very comparable to industry standards. And the way that it works is it would just appear as another line item within compliance for the students. They would simply click Get Started and they would be prompted to select from a list of packages. Now, oftentimes there's standard background checks or standard drug screenings that the university may require, either prior to matriculation or what have you. And then there's sometimes site-specific requirements as well. Um, you'll be able to list all the different packages here and provide very clear guidelines again for the students. So if there is a site-specific drug screen, for example, that the student needs, um, you can make it very clear that if the student is placed at that clinic or at that site, they need to obtain a special drug screening or a special drug background check. Now, after completing the standard release forms, student authorizing them to run a background check on themselves, once that's completed, the results upload directly back into the platform. Now, for the drug screening, it's a very similar process. The only difference is the student is prompted to punch in their zip code. And Universal works with 20,000 clinics nationwide between Quest, LabCorp, Concentra, US HealthWorks. They indicate the distance that they're comfortable traveling, and they'll receive a confirmation email that looks like this after selecting a convenient clinic. Now, let me go ahead and unmute Emily here. It looks like we've lost and then joined. Emily, is everything? Oh, okay, there we go. We have Deborah and Emily back. Perfect. Did you miss anything? Is every Do I need to go back?
Hey, Jake, we can only see the main slide. Sorry,
No,
I'm
the
that
whole time.
I'm
You've only been able to see the main slide the whole
yeah.
time? Oh my gosh. Oh no.
Sorry.
Let's uh let's try this again. Hmm, how about now?
Now we can, but I think everyone might have missed the other slides. But
Oh my goodness. Okay. I'll go back and quickly elaborate. I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize you could only see
yeah,
the
and I'm sorry I didn't catch it earlier.
that's okay. Um, so we'll start from here. This is the setup page. We'll walk you through the entire setup process, determining the different requirements for each document. Um, this is what the student's profile page looks like here, where each of the documents and their various statuses associated with those. This is also a piece where you, as the administrator, can go in and manage the statuses. So if you need to make an emergency approval or what have you, you can do that as an administrator, even with our team reviewing. Now, here is the upload screen for the documentation for the students. Very clear guidelines that you can provide for them as well as any relevant details to the documentation. Our team, when they review, if we disapprove a document, will write a note as to why and next steps. Let's go to Universal. Now, Universal appears as just another line item here. The students can click Get Started, and it prompts them to select from a list of packages, site-specific or standard at the university. This can be for checks or screenings. After completing the normal release forms, again, results are just automatically uploaded back in. And again, you can provide very clear guidelines for the students in terms of what they need to be selecting as far as which package. Now, for the drug screening here, as I mentioned, very similar process. The only difference is they're prompted to put in their zip code and the distance that they're comfortable traveling. The student selects the most convenient clinic for them. And again, Universal works with 20,000 clinics, so plenty of clinics for the students to choose from. They'll receive this confirmation email, and then when they go in to give their sample, they can pull this email up on their phone to have this barcode scanned, and this barcode is what allows the results to flow directly back into Exact once that screening is complete. So I think that catches us up to speed for the most part. Um, Now, with regards to communication, our team, we can have automatic notifications set up internally within the system itself and externally. So there's multiple methods for internal notification. But additionally, we can send an email that gives them a snapshot of their status with regards to compliance. So this email is something that you can determine as a program what the frequency you would like it to be going out at, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, twice a week. But this just emails the student directly and lets them know, hey, these documents need your attention. And all this language here, this is configurable. You can have it contain your university logo, so it still appears personalized and like it's coming from the school. Now, let's say you've had students upload all their documentation. Now it's time for them to go out on clinical rotation. And from an onboarding perspective, this is an email that you can send to the site to let them know all the details on the student that they would be requesting or requiring. So they're sent this link here, and you again the email and the language is configurable, but it'll say something along the lines of, dear Gwen, this email is to notify you details of a student that's been placed at Biomed, for example. So the site coordinator or whoever it is, the preceptor, whoever's managing the student at the site, they can go in and look at all the information that the student has provided, including, and most relevant to this presentation, all of their compliance information will be displayed here. Now we can also control the visibility across the board. So if you need something not viewable or viewable, we can tweak that as needed. Now, from an administrator's point of view, even though our team is reviewing, if you want to see how your cohort or cohorts are doing with regards to compliance, this screen will give you a nice idea of that, or this dashboard here, which you'll have access to as an administrator. It'll break down across the board, which students are compliant and which ones are not, depending on whether documents have been disapproved or are coming up on expiration or expired. You can also use filters to create a custom report to narrow in on a specific student or document type or a set of statuses. Now, these dashboards are also interactive. So if I were to click on a particular piece of the bar or a particular piece of the pie here, for example, let's say I'm interested in all the documents that have been disapproved across this cohort. I click this red piece of the pie, and it's going to take me to a customized report displaying just that information. Now you can achieve the same thing through the use of filters, but I think the dashboard is a neat tool to be able to create that customized report really quickly. Now all reports and information in the system is all extractable, so you can export it into your desired format, whether that be PDF, Word, Excel, what have you. So that's pretty much everything that I had planned to share with regards to Approve. In terms of why Approve, one platform to streamline all your needs, so you're not having to use multiple different pieces of software to manage the different aspects of clinical education, and customer service as well. We've been highly rated by all our clients, specifically for this product Approve. We get really great feedback. We help onboard, train, and ongoing communication throughout the year, or years, I should say. Um, we've also done, I don't want to say studies because that wouldn't quite be accurate, but a poll asking programs, hey, how much time do you think you've saved on average by using Approve compared to what you were doing before in house? And the typical response is about 2 weeks of time saved. Just from reviewing student documentation. Now, this obviously depends on the sizes of your cohorts, but uh, yeah, and then also lifetime access. So after the student graduates, the student still maintains access to the system. So if they need to pull immunizations for any potential future employers or any of the documentation that they've uploaded, they can go back and pull that information as needed. And that just about wraps up my presentation for Approve today. Hopefully that gives you a nice idea of what all Exet Approve entails. And I now want to open it up to any questions or anything of that nature. Let's go ahead and
So,
take.
hi Jake. Emily had a question. Do we have our state background option available still? And I responded to that, Emily. I just can't see my response, so I don't know if you can see it, but I will just verbally say it. You're free to speak to Universal, contact Vanessa, and see if she can work. They offer the ones with your state, so they do some like Corey and Patch, but a lot of our schools do the national backgrounds with them and then the drug, and then for any state specific they just ask the students to do it directly via the state's website. So that's another option as well. So I hope that answers your question.
Oh, I see. They're in the questions section. Understood. The chat section might be a little better. Let's see. Can you? There we go. That might be a little better for conversation.
Thank you.
If we can go to the chat at the bottom there. I don't know if you're able to see that.
I can see that now.
And it looks like Donna joined as well. Donna, you joined a little late. Any questions that I can help you with or help answer? I know this is recorded as well, so we'll send a recording after. But
Mhm. And then Emily, your other question is we use exact for both. You use exact for both. You mean drug and background screenings? So with Prism and this approve, is this going to still include both? So if you're referring to using background and drug, yes, it's still the same. You'll just be signing on for the approved services. Everything else remains the same.
yeah, so Prism and Approve, those are both part of Exact. Universal is a separate company that we work with just to facilitate background checks and drug screens. So those are separate fees, and those fees are paid directly to Universal. Now, those the whole thing, the entire process can remain within Exact. So the students never have to leave Exact. They just select the appropriate package and then it uploads back in. We can also prompt the program with payment ahead of time for these. You can pay on the student's behalf, or you can prompt students at the time of request and they can pay directly within the system. Hopefully that answers the question there. I'll give it another minute or so. Oh, okay. No questions. Both background. Perfect. Okay. Well, that just about wraps everything up. If there are more questions, I'm more than happy to stick around and answer any further questions. I'm also happy to talk on the side as well. Let's see if I can. I'll list my email if you'd like to reach out for any individual. Um, let's see if I can send that here. So I just sent the response. Um, if you would like to reach out to me, feel free. That's my email that I have just provided. And you should receive a follow up email with a recording as well. So thank you very much for joining the presentation, and let me know if there's anything I can help with.
Thank you, Jake.
Yeah, thank you, Shital, for the support. I appreciate it. And I'm going to go ahead and close the webinar now, but I look forward to speaking with you. Likewise, Emily and Deborah, take care.